Hi guys, I'm back with another video, and today I thought it would be fun to do a I would never video. So things that I would never do at Disney World. So I have my list on my phone here, so if I'm looking down, that's why. So the first one is stay off site. I've done this before when I went with a group in high school, so I didn't really have choice over where we stayed. We were a huge group, but that is definitely something that now as an adult, my husband and I wouldn't do. And I know I've mentioned this before. So if it is something like we can't afford to stay on site, we just would not go. That's just our personal preference. Given the number of times I've been in my experiences, we would never choose to stay off site. Number 2, skip an afternoon siesta. We always take a rest in the afternoon, always. So something to keep in mind is we go in the summer when it's warmer. So I think this is even more important when you go during the warmer months. But we get to the park at opening, which I'm gonna get to later, and then we stay until lunch or a little bit after, and then we take an afternoon rest and then come back at about 5:45, 6-ish after we've eaten dinner at our hotel, and then stay there for a couple more hours. So I think it helps us to not get crabby, because you're in the happiest place on earth, so you do not want to be crabby, but it's very easy to be crabby because you're hot, you're standing in line, you get hungry, and then there's people that, you're in crowds of people, that kind of thing. So I think taking an afternoon rest is important for everybody. We are just 2 adults, we have no children, and we still do it. But if you have kids, I think it's even more important. Number 3, the third thing that I would never do is get base tickets. Now with base tickets, you only have access to 1 Disney theme park per day, and you don't have any water park access. So one day you can visit either the Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, or Animal Kingdom. Now you can leave and come back, but you have to come back to the same park. When you have park hopper tickets, you can visit all 4 parks in one day if you want to, and only use 1 day off your ticket. So if you had base tickets, if you visited the Magic Kingdom in the morning and then you went to Epcot in the afternoon, you would be using 2 days worth of tickets. Whereas if you had the park hopper, you would only be using 1 day worth of tickets. So I think that, like for us, like I mentioned before, we take an afternoon rest. So we visit a different park in the afternoon. And I think this is great because we will have some parks where we spend more time than others. And for example, Magic Kingdom is our favorite morning park, and Epcot is our favorite evening park. So this allows us to spend more time at the Magic Kingdom in the morning and more time in the Epcot in the evening. The fourth thing I would never do is not book my dining or fast pass reservations as soon as possible. So if you are staying on site, you can book your dining reservations 180 days before the start of your trip. If you are staying on site, you can book your fast pass reservations 60 days before the start of your trip. I would never wait. I would never wait until like 160 days to book my dining reservations because things fill up so quickly and you're gonna have such limited availability that's just another thing for me. I would never do that. Book it as soon as you can. The 5th thing that I would never do is miss a park opening. I would never show up to a park an hour after it is already open. The welcome shows are particularly in Magic Kingdom. Magic Kingdom is the best, so you really want to catch the welcome show there. But aside from just the welcome show, the earliest park hours are the least busy. I would guess like at the very, very end too, but we don't stay for the park closing. But given how we have our park plans, the very earliest part of the day is the least busy. And we have just walked onto rides that are the most popular. So that's another thing that for us, we would never ever miss is a park opening. We would never skip a park. So we would never have a trip where, we're just not gonna go to Hollywood Studios this time, or we're gonna skip Epcot, or we're gonna skip Animal Kingdom. We would not do that. There are things that we just can't imagine having a trip without. So right now, Hollywood Studios is kind of a half-day park with all of the construction that's going on and things that are closed. But that being said, they still have Rock and Roller Coaster, Tower of Terror, which are 2 of our all-time favorite rides, and they have Toy Story Mania, which is a really cool ride as well. So we will go to the park, if nothing else, because we have the park hopper, it's really easy. I could go to that park, go on just those 3 things, and then we could leave and go to Epcot, either walk to Epcot or take a boat ride, and it would be super easy, but we would never skip a park altogether. The next thing I would never do is wear inappropriate footwear to a park. I guess I should say the next thing I would never do again is wear inappropriate footwear to a park, because I have done it before. Like I said, we go to a different park in the morning than we do in the evening. So the morning we always end up walking way more in the morning. So I have been victim to wearing flip-flops in the park in the evening park, and it had recently rained. It wasn't raining anymore, but there were still some small puddles on the ground. You know, the ground is wet. Well, if you've ever worn flip-flops, when they get wet, they rub in one place and only on one shoe for whatever reason. You get blisters. It's just not, it's just terrible. So I had to go get a Band-Aid. And they do have great first aid stations in the park, but when you have a blister on your foot, they seem miles and miles and miles away. Even though they're not, it seems like you have to go a really long ways. And then on top of that, there's absolutely no support. We have now, with our phones having pedometers in them and stuff like that, we actually have counted, and we walk over 10 miles a day at Disney World easily. I think our least busy day was still over 7. And that's a long while to walk if you're wearing flip-flops or if you're wearing shoes that rub or something like that. So always wear appropriate footwear. The last thing I would never do is spend time on my phone in the parks. I have mentioned this in other videos before, where I really prefer to have things on paper. I don't want to have to look at my phone. That being said, we have brought our phone before. We use it for pictures. My husband has used it before to check the My Disney Experience app. It is not completely necessary though, because they do have kiosks in the park where you can add an additional fast pass. So that's something to keep in mind. So even if we do have a phone, I still will not be I'm not going to be the kind of person that spends time on my phone in line, looking for something to do, because sometimes the lines are really, really exciting. Like Frozen Ever After, the line is really cool actually. And I personally thought the line was better than the ride, but that's just me. But Toy Story Mania, they have a pretty cool line as well. They do their best to make the lines interesting, and I like to kind of block out the rest of the world, and that's something about staying on Disney property. Yes, you're paying money for it, but it really keeps you immersed. So why would I want to wreck that by going on my phone and bringing some of the real world back? Some things I've seen other people do in line to pass the time is they'll get a hidden Mickey's book and they'll read it to their family, to their kids, to keep them occupied, which I think is a great idea if you have a bag. If I ever bring a bag to the park, I tell my husband every time, I'm like, I really want to do that one time. I want to get a hidden Mickey's book and we can read it in line when we're waiting. But it still keeps you in the Disney zone, I guess, but it keeps you occupied if you really need something to do. But in all honesty, we don't wait in line that much when we go. We just have some really careful planning, and we just talk to each other, so it's never been a problem. I've actually seen people texting in the middle of the ride, in the middle of a dark ride, which is very irritating because your screen is so bright and when you're on a dark ride, like Pirates of the Caribbean or Haunted Mansion. I have been on Haunted Mansion where somebody in the next car behind me is on the phone. They are on the phone and talking to somebody. This is so rude. It is like absolutely driven me nuts. I almost said something, but I'm kind of a chicken like that. But I should have said something, because you're paying good money to go on this trip, and if somebody else is like ruining an experience for you for something like that. And I heard the conversation. It was not like it was an emergency. It was something totally dumb, like, oh yeah, I'm on this ride now. It's like, no, that is very rude to other people. And what, you paid money for this. Why are you not enjoying what you're doing? Why go on the ride if you're not even going to pay attention, if you're just going to be on the phone? So that is another thing I will never do. I will especially never, ever, ever be on my phone during a ride. I cannot imagine a situation. Unless I have some kind of massive emergency, which has never happened, I would never do that. So those are just the things that I would never do, given my my experience at Disney World and the number of times I've gone. So I hope you found it helpful or enlightening, or maybe even just interesting. And thank you for watching. Bye guys.